Okay, so we have persons from about 20 countries, and I haven't added the US here, but we welcome everyone, and while we appreciate the e-learning advantages, we really wish we could take you out to the field to a place like this, but hopefully in the future we will be able to do that. Today, we're gonna share with you just a brief introduction about who we are and the initiative and how it relates to the topic of agroecological benefits of microhydro, community scale hydro. And then we'll have a panel discussion with a speaker who has practiced this for a few decades on the ground. And then we'll go through some logistical aspects. So some of you may have heard this. I think we have a number of people from the previous courses joining, but for the benefit of those that are new, the Hydro Empowerment Network focuses on knowledge exchange, advocacy, and advocacy on multi-thematic areas of community scale hydro. And by that, we mean below 1 megawatt. We have multi-stakeholder network. However, we really, our mission is to support the very local practitioner. That's where the rubber meets the road. And we look at technical, socio-environmental, policy, and finance aspects. So we are a team of people based in different parts of the globe, but most of the team is based in Kuala Lumpur. We are hosted by Energy Action Partners, and that organization is based there. And today, Lara and I would be joining. I think Lara hasn't joined yet, but she has been the co-anchor for this, and so I'm sure she will probably join soon. If you're new to HPNet, I encourage you to watch this short video to give you a visual of what new to HPNet, and if you're new to community hydro, this video gives you a nice visual of what the work entails. You can find it on our Twitter page, HPNet Hydro. And we're not going to watch it now, but what I would like to share is that when we look at a community hydro system, we start by looking at the watershed. That's like the foundational component. And then there are various civil structures, including a pipeline or a penstock that routes the flow of water into a turbine connected to a generator. And then the electricity gets distributed for household and enterprise and social service use, as well as in some cases it's sold to the main grid. And we have, over the course of the last 9 years, learned what has worked and not worked, mostly in the Asia Pacific and now also in Africa, and new learning recently from Latin America. What we know for sure is that there are various advantages to community scale hydro when other decentralized renewable energies don't necessarily have these advantages. One major advantage is that there is no need for batteries if you have a site that has consistent flow. And that greatly reduces costs, and that means communities can pay less if the system is being financed by them, and that leads to better use of the system, and basically more productive end use because the tariff is more affordable, and that creates a big socioeconomic impact. And then local manufacturing also has added value. It creates jobs, it helps to reduce costs, it increases reliability, and And then for productive end use, while there is the electricity aspects, there's also mechanical advantage. If your powerhouse is closer to the community, can actually run a rice mill on the, or various motorized loads on the shaft. And in some cases, the sector actually started with these mechanical units that were then converted to pico and microhydro systems. And yeah, and then finally, what we have been focusing on the last 2 courses is I'm just trying to mute everyone here. Yeah, we have been focusing on watersheds and climate resilience aspects, and part of that is agroecology. So I look forward to getting into that soon. All of these things are housed within an initiative we call the Seed Accelerator, which basically starts from understanding what are the best practices, because often projects fail like after being implemented. And one of our objectives of the network is to ensure that projects don't fail, and in fact, they scale up. And we have realized that at the core of projects that fail often is that communities don't see the project more than a social asset. Often the electricity is provided only a few hours a day in the evening, because there is this mindset that if they run it all the time, something will go wrong and they'll have to raise funds to fix it. So let's just use it like a delicate thing. And this is the case because systems are not properly designed and they go through various issues, technical issues. So the community has this mindset that let's just use it just enough. Let's not take full advantage when the flow is actually there and the production of electricity is there for 24 hours. However, when we make sure that projects can run 24 hours and the community can adapt a mindset of a social enterprise, that the project can generate income, revenue that can be used however as the community wants. And the way that this is done is the community has productive end use that depends on the electricity, and so they can pay tariff properly. In some cases, the enterprise tariff helps to subsidize household tariff. And so we have seen in contexts that have been developed without donor funding, like in Myanmar and Afghanistan, difficult places, where there is instability, and yet there are thousands of community scale hydro systems. And a lot of technical innovation and learning that's happened on its own is because of having this kind of a social enterprise model. And so in this way, we have both energy and economic development. And SEED is an initiative, it's an accelerator where we really want to encourage local practitioners to meet these elements that I'll show you in a minute. But yeah, the purpose of it is to increase the sustainability of these projects and the impact. And then, as I'll mention in a little while, to go beyond the benefit of just kilowatts, like really bring social change. So these are the elements. The first is sustainable watersheds. Like without that flow, there can be no system. These are some visuals from our member in India that focuses on spring shed restoration. And we are covering some of this in the course that we started last week. Then secondly, we need reliable technology. If the system is going to be functioning just every now and then, community members are not going to trust it to establish and invest in productive end use. So yeah, there are various inspiring, these are just pictures from the Asia Pacific, but there are equal amounts of technical capacity building and know-how happening in sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America as well. And training centers and people who can go to these areas to help build on existing skill sets is critical. And once we have reliable technology and water flow, we can start to focus on the enterprise model. And the basics of that is productive end use. This is an example of a system in Myanmar that started out as a 30 kilowatt system providing electricity to 5 communities, which then, as it generated revenue, it's a cooperative owned system, as it generated revenue, it then had enough savings to upgrade to an 80 kilowatt system. And when I did the study on this community, these were the different productive end uses. And now the system, we supported this project to receive finance to upgrade to their vision, like which they started out with at the start of the project, was to have a 300 kilowatt system that powers various end uses, but as a major anchor load, in an induction furnace was the major anchor load. So they were creating metal, casted metal parts, and they achieved that vision. So we usually talk about productive end use as like general productive end use, but in this course, we want to go deeper into the agri processing elements to it. I will get back to that soon. Yeah, and so usually to have a social enterprise, you need strong governance. This project is run by a cooperative. They have a proper utility building. The developer himself, Usai Tunla, is a shareholder, and there's been great trust built with this community. He's not from this region, although he has similar other cooperatives in his own region. So yeah, there is extensive social engineering that happens in order to make a social enterprise project. This project actually has transformers, and most of it, all of this is locally built and manufactured. So the last component that we all aim for is change in the community that goes beyond kilowatts. And an example of this is Aga Khan Rural Support Program's work in Pakistan, where they have done both micro hydro systems and mini hydro systems that are valley-based, and their program, the utility scale mini grids are focused on women ownership and empowerment. So a lot of the productive end use is centered around women. Women are trained to do things that they would like to do but aren't normally known to do, like do the survey or feasibility study, as well as carpentry, as you can see in this picture, and also various other income generation. And women are the shareholders of the project. So yeah, this is an example of how electricity can go beyond kilowatts in terms of impact. So these are our elements of SEED. And there are other aspects that I've kind of mentioned along the way, but one big thing is how projects are financed. We hope to have a course specifically on this in the future, and the various actors and factors involved. And also another major aspect of making programs successful is the need to plan between the extension of the main grid and these community scale projects, so that they can both work in tandem. So yeah, these are the key takeaways that I've already mentioned. And how do we do this? We start with collating best practices from different practitioners and regions. And we really appreciate our members in providing those inputs. Then we start to ground truth further on what are the challenges and who's involved, what multi-stakeholders are involved. And what we have tweaked over the last couple of years is that our exchanges, while earlier they focused a lot on practice to policy and things like this, now we really focus on that local practitioner offering and multi-actors, first offering these kind of e-courses, but also forming cohorts of practitioners in sub-regions and then supporting them with customized support to meet their needs to scale up and improve their work. And once we can have practitioners meet all of those seed elements, we want to start advocating for them and helping them raise funding for their specific work so that we actually see impact. We want to see impact on the ground from all of our efforts. We're very grateful to have a number of organizations supporting the initiative with different levels of support. And so far, we've obtained grants to do these different modules. And just to give you an overview of the 3 courses, so there has been this 6-week course on the fundamentals of community scale hydro, and that had 6 modules going from broad introduction to introducing technical aspects. And I think, yeah, there's a typo in the percentage of women and field-based here. But the second course focuses on the watershed aspect and how to build climate resilience into community scale hydro. And this has also different modules. And then the course we're starting today, kicking off, are the agroecological aspects. And I just want to mention that because we have some people taking all 3 of these courses or 2 of them, but others who are taking just 1 of them. So we have included these modules, like module A is in all 3 courses. So if you've already done that, you can skip that. Module G is also reintroduced in the agroecology part because it's a very it's a foundation to agroecology. And yeah, and then all these in the yellow are what we are going to be releasing this week. So we have different teams working on these, and the first course modules were very strong areas for us, and actually the reason we are doing the climate resilient and agri-processing agroecological benefits course is because those things are not obvious to multi-actors especially, and even some of our practitioners. And as such, we as practitioners also have gone through a learning curve. Like there's a whole different set of terminology and concepts, and it's done differently from region to region. So it's taken us a bit longer to complete the modules for the second course. And however, we want to release those, and as well as the agroecology module in the next few days. So you will be informed. You'll see this when you log into the e-platform, and we can also send an email notification so you're not constantly waiting on the modules to be updated. We appreciate your patience as we go through this process. So an overview of the agroecological course, as I mentioned, there'd be an orientation and then also reviewing the climate resilient watershed, the intro part of that course. And then we go into there are just typos all over. Yeah, this, not module A for agroecology. However, to tell you what's in the course, we do want to clarify some terminology. so that it's clear on how we will use those terms in the course, and then look at what are the different elements that constitute agroecology. It's not just agri-processing, that's one part of it. And then we look at integrating those elements into community scale hydro. And as a part of this course, we also wanted to offer a separate module on food forests, since one of our team members has extensive experience on this as a regenerative solution that can be used as a part of watershed strengthening. So yeah, this is a snapshot of what the course will be. And now we have a guest speaker with us that I'd like to introduce, and first make sure she is still online. Yes. We have with us Miss Victoria Lopez. She has over nearly 3 decades of experience in this sector. She had been the executive director of CBOT, an organization that focuses on energy, sustainable agriculture in the Philippines, in indigenous communities, using various solutions, solar, wind, and hydro, and doing it with an approach of similar to HPNet, building a network of stakeholders, as well as capacity building. She established a local manufacturing center while she was there, and various other things that she's done while she was there. And now, after retiring from CBOT, she actually came back to the sector, wanting to focus on what I just mentioned, like the broader linkages of climate resilience and the water, energy, food nexus. So agroecology is something she has been doing for many years. And prior to all of this, she was a professor of physics in university. So let me see if I can get her camera. Okay, Miss Vicky, I think. Yes, and now I'm gonna unmute you, or you can unmute Miss Vicky. She is speaking to us today from the town of Tarlac in the Philippines, and I'm gonna stop sharing my slides. And okay, Miss Vicky, can you hear me? You just have to unmute yourself. Okay, now we can hear you.
Thank you. Do I start now?
Yeah, Ms. Vicky, we have the audience here, and I just want to first thank you for joining us, your evening time in the Philippines, and also yeah, inspiring this module. I would like to ask you to start off by just sharing briefly your overall thoughts on this topic and why you entered into it, and then I have some specific questions.
Okay, so I observed that the agroecology is not yet very much within the whole strategic frame, but it is there and may well come under the PEU, the productive end uses. So why agroecology and microhydro? Firstly, I have to begin from a covenant with my former network organization.
Ms. Vicky, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would it be okay to speak just a little bit louder?
All right, all right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is that okay? Better?
Yeah, I think it's better.
that the people's well-being and not electrical power be the main purpose of our RE program then. That was 1997. And where also microhydro became the technology of choice to develop. This was a decision by some 20 organizations then, members of our network. And we called agroecology then as in the Philippine context, sustainable agriculture, very interchangeable, same. And it embodied the appropriate technology to promote the people's well-being. As I've said, well-being is the main purpose. And by people, we mean the rural poor majority who comprised our members at the time. And we have had 10 years of building SA, Sustainable Agriculture, before the first MHP was even built. So we had a long period not to prepare, you know, as our background. Our rural communities where the MHPs were built grew their rice through traditional farming on wet or irrigated rice farms, terraced rice farms in the Cordillera, mostly Cordillera region. This is the main form of food production through the year. And however, this is common to all microhydro organizations and areas. There were 3 to 4 months with very, very inadequate supply of rice. And we called it bisin or hunger periods. That's common to all. And during those 3 months, water supply is so low, okay, inadequate. The earliest MHP development took note of this and designed the MHP with a large water supply, more than what the power development needed, development aspect. The design was robust and the outcome too. This was referring to a particular project in Gakab, Malibkong, Abra province, Gakab, which basically has been able to solve the hunger period until today.
Okay.
So, sufficiency characterized the production.
Miss Vicky, I'm going to interrupt you so that we can have a more back and forth dialogue. I know you have notes there, but you can just share directly with us because that will be more engaging for our audience. Yeah, like we can share all of those details also in our supplementary material, but you can just share directly with us, Miss Vicky. It will be more engaging. Basically, you were explaining that you actually started working on sustainable agriculture before community hydro.
Before hydro.
Yeah.
10 years.
Okay. Yeah, 10 years before that, and so just in a broader step back view, without going into specific projects, why do you think agroecology is important for rural communities? And I want to ask along with that. So when we think of agriculture, it's a very commercial, you know, there is actually focus among donors to fund electricity and agriculture now. It's a new thing, and it's great that these two worlds are finally coming together. But how is agriculture different from agroecology?
Okay, and I was going to that.
Yes, yeah.
I was talking about the first project that undertook that redesigning to meet the hunger problem. which is common to many communities in the Cordillera. But that was just to say, it was just planting, no? So to speak, and which gave good yields. But
can you repeat that last line? You said it was just
I was talking about just the planting part.
Oh, no? The planting. Okay.
And then which produced a lot.
Okay.
Up to the present. Imagine that was Jeddah. He gave me that was more than 20 years already. No.
Okay.
There's a reason to that. But before that, the water supply that drives the MHP to produce electrical energy. Take note, no, is the link to realizing the purpose to produce more and sufficiently. So there is immediately the link. If we do not notice that link, that this lack of water supply, which is basic to agriculture production, is not considered in the whole strategy or development of the micro hydropower design, then we cannot get to yield improvement. Okay, so allow me, Dipti. Why is sustainable agriculture needed, or how does it further relate to microhydro? Okay. SA promotes the ecological features of traditional farming that sustained productivity at the time. Take note the context of the story. This is one story, but by the time when I got to recall, there are not too many of this. It is a traditional farming community, which means there have been traditional ecological practices already. So it wasn't a difficult one, no? But SA promotes along the yield development, promotes and expands biodiversity in plants and even in animals and their integrated relationship by way of conserving resources. So it became part of that sustaining productivity, but then it came with improving of the basic stock of plant, and that is seed, which is taken care of by women. SA promotes the conservation practices that avoids wastage and all, and this was improved. And in the heart of the ecological practice is the conservation of seeds, led and managed by women, as I said. Seeds ensure the sustainability of the entire agricultural production. That wasn't very much there when we began the work on sustainable agriculture. Remember, we do not lose the link with the watershed, particularly with the water system. It was a driving point that produced the basis for all of this. But stepping on the traditional ecological practices made things quite easy for us to develop this biodiversity, intensive agricultural production from fewer, let's say, biodiversity from fewer sources from plant material for food. This was increased, no? Although further, and in the heart of the ecological practices is the conservation of seeds. The story on women's role here is very important, no? But I will not do that now.
Yeah, so Miss Vicky, I want to ask you if we talk about traditional practices. I remember with the communities I worked with, the local ceremonies that they did for their festivals, yes. The seeds were like the central part of that ceremony. I wonder, yeah, if you could share more about what was already existing in place, before coming in with your methods? What were some of the indigenous practices?
Of course, it's some parts were communal, some parts were collective farming. That by way of meeting the deficiency in labor also. Mm-hmm. And then Jeda would know a lot on these specific practices. But these practices were not, okay. Water system management is by it's community governed. It's a community policy, so that sharing of water supply is ensured. And then the varietal trials also. We assisted on that one. And then, but how does SA in the context of traditional agriculture among IPs support or enhance ecological protection of the watershed? I could mention one now, and one is that the encroachment on the watershed through what is called Sweden farming, the old practice, to meet the deficiencies in food.
Yeah, I just want to clarify for everyone, Sweden is the technical term for shifting cultivation, where some forest land is burned in order to plant things.
So the report says it's now, like in many parts, it's no longer there, because they have the increase in yield has been realized, and there's no need anymore for place to plant the other crops, because they could do that where water is. No.
So this is the impact from some of the capacity building you provided, Ms. Vicky, that the yield grew enough that their Sweden farming was reduced.
Yes, that was in fact a target at the time, the removal of Sweden farm.
And can you probably explained this already, but I just want to clarify, how was the yield increase? Was it yield from the Sweden or yield from some other agriculture?
From the terraced farms. Terraced farms are like terraces.
Yeah.
Mountains, no?
Yeah.
And even if the mountains are huge, the paddies are very small, and it depends on the availability of water. So before the yield was improved, there was rice supply, but there comes again, as I've said, the 3 months there was nearly nothing, so that the people went out to look for jobs outside, and then because the labor on the first months, the rice produced on the first months have been consumed, so there's nothing for the next 3 to 4 months. And so that was solved by the improvement of the irrigation. And that was owing to the good design, I said robust design of the microhydro. That was early microhydro that was done.
And was that through pumping or routing the water?
Routing the water. So increasing the water supply through the penstock and all. So but that was so where the supply went was also discussed or talked about by the people. Those who needed the water supply, needed the additional water supply.
Miss Vicky, just so everyone is clear, I'm just going to show this diagram again. Soon shows up. Basically, Miss Vicky is talking about the water that comes out of the tail race. It's not so well shown here, but that flow can be discussed with the community and may to flow to the fields that are usually receiving, like, are doing agriculture just based on rainfall. So this is without electric pumping, but routing the water from the tail race to the fields. Yeah, Miss Vicky, is that the?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So the water is available, but this how to bring this to the for irrigation purpose was made possible.
Okay, that made the yield possible. Yeah.
Possible. The thing is, exactly, with good irrigation supply, the yield was realized, good yield was realized, which ultimately removed the hunger period for the communities. And then, and alongside, there were varietal improvements. That was, of course, with our inputs, no, varietal improvements that improved the number, the types of plants that went to the table for food, and even the animals also. So, what else? But important, of course, was the seed. No, without the seed, and with good storage of seed, that will not be possible.
And did the hydro system impact how seeds were stored in any way, or that was a separate?
That was a separate,
okay.
Separate, project.
Yeah. So far you have talked about food growing, and yes. You know, yeah.
It started that way, and but you could derive insights from that on the link of the hydro, the microhydro, to the water source. It's just that it could be done, let's say, innovatively with using another system, right? No, but then the capacity of the hydro is there. The capacity of the microhydro is there. So hence, from a critical facilitative move to improve water supply, a vital need for food production is met or provided. But with sustainable agriculture process, this is we believe is sustained, no? And we could say that's at certain points, food security becomes established in the area. GACAB is a beautiful microhydro project. It has produced a lot of benefits for the people, including funds for education, funds for health, etc. And that is also even loan component of the entire project. They have done that.
So, Ms. Vicky, is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions about what you just said? So the microhydro system generated revenue enough to provide social services to the community? Yes. And how did it generate that revenue?
Well, partly because of the power enterprise concept, that from the revenues from monthly tariff by the people, that's one. And then there are also revenues coming from the rice milling, from the mechanical end uses. There are also revenues from selling the rice. Now they sell rice. And this is worth looking into the tea. A good case study. That's what I told Jeddah. We were not able to write these elements, but it's knowledge from all those who went there.
Yeah.
There is a good number of projects that we can show. Well, what I see is that what is important is the ecological part. Without good, without improvement of the soil ecologically, you cannot sustain the production. even if there's water, water is not enough. You have to create the environment and the requirements, yeah. And those are the elements of ecological agriculture. I am not here to, I will not discuss these basic things, but the elements of conservation, protection, and
yeah, Ms. Vicky, I just want to put the signposts. So we were talking about growing food and how access to water helped, access to water through the microhydro structure. And then there was additional revenue from processing that food that was grown. Yeah. So agri-processing, rice milling, and other things. Yep. And so now you were saying that all of this is really dependent on the ecological system, the ecological resilience of yeah. We actually have a question here from Chisakula, who is in Zambia. He is asking whether, actually, Chisakula, would you like to unmute yourself?
Chisakula.
You should be able to unmute now.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Thank you, Deep.
Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah, thanks, Chisakula. Yeah, I thought to let you ask in your natural voice. Yeah.
Thank you, Deepti. Thank you, Ms. Lopez, for that. It's always a pleasure when you have somebody that has lived it and then share it. I think that's, for me, it's the best form of learning. Anecdotal definitely is the way. What I wanted to find out from Ms. Lopez, this is a question that's always asked, when you're talking about bringing electricity to a community, and whether that then stimulates economic activity, or there is already economic activity that is needing of that electricity. So what I wanted to find out from her is, from the many projects that she started giving us a reference to earlier, whether she could say that she went into a community that was begging for electricity. Remember the fact that we have this watershed that is through that ecological kind of existence. The community lives off that environment, and then you come the developer that says we want to put up a mini hydro power plant. And what I wanted to establish from her is, of course, these competing needs. Did she ever experience a situation where they didn't need the electricity, they were doing just fine? We don't want you to disturb our ecosystem, so to speak. That was the first part I was asking. And obviously the second part is understanding agroecology impacts on climate change, climate mitigation, so to speak. I wanted to find out whether there was any shift in terms of how they were delivering off this new energy source, and how that helped in terms of reducing emissions, and also how they efficiently utilize the local resources. Here, I have in mind, in Zambia, for example, there's a lot of gathering of wood fuel, so maybe I would want to gather from her experience on the ground whether there was a reduction in because I heard about that by the way, that practice of clearing the land for planting. In Zambia, there's a local name, it's called Chitemene system. So pretty much deforestation of the worst kind. So maybe she could comment on those two aspects. I don't know if I've made myself very clear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chisakula. Yeah, Ms. Vicky, should I recap or?
No, please.
So whether the first part of the question is regarding competing priorities, you over the course of your of your time in the sector, you established, I think, over like 30 community hydro projects. Yeah.
That's right.
And so did you experience competing priorities where the community didn't actually want electricity, but had other needs?
Yeah, I could, there was one project which in the south, in Mindanao, also an IP or indigenous peoples area that wanted the rice mill instead of, and later for this, for the water, for the electrical supply to follow. So we did that, and it was a good one. My God, it is a robust project also. The reason is they would want to consolidate the community members further in appreciating or understanding the technologies, because these are, you know, difficult IP areas. But that was successful in that. No quarrel about that. So we always well, all our projects were requested. We never went to a place and you know, ask people about their need for electrical demand, electricity, etc. So, but most of the areas wanted sufficient electrical supply. The situation then is that our funding agency, even if there were alongside other needs, no, food production or sustainable agriculture needs, that particular agency which funded a lot of our projects did not want to do that. But of course, when the electrical supply was realized, it happened. The people automatically built their own rice mill, you know, had their trainings for metal works and all other applications. We did not need to get into, you know, specific trainings for all of this. And that was a realization. It's good, no? Which means that the people were ready. They produced the funds for all those projects.
Yeah, so in this case,
what was probably competing would be there, but these were organized communities anyway. And they had already among themselves talked about what they wanted. Okay. So in their request.
Yeah, I think Chisakula is asking about communities that didn't want electricity, but perhaps access to water or other needs. And so in this case, the community wanted a rice mill, which was not included in the formal project, and they made it happen through the revenue of the funded project. Yeah, in my experience, I have engaged with communities that did not want electricity and they wanted the water, access to water, after seeing systems like the one Ms. Vicky described, where the tail race water is routed. And I think, like, similarly to what Ms. Vicky said, the funding is typically there for a very specific reason. And usually, like, ideally, one would have gone through the process with the community to identify needs before finalizing the proposal. But often donors come with, you know, we're going to fund just energy access. We're going to fund just clean cook stoves or just this or that. And so I think you bring up a good point, Chisakula, that yeah, we need to work with funders on making this more community driven and needs based. Yeah. And then the second question he had, Ms. Vicky, was on climate change. So how agroecological practices also mitigate climate change, reducing
Well, of
emissions.
course, if it's reduction of the greenhouse of the GHG, it is the all agricultural areas were intensively planted, and even the former Swedes were planted with trees. So in terms of the role of people in further developing the vegetation, that was helpful. Of course, the people's role here in climate change on a whole is very basic and very important. It's their original role in clearing mountainsides whenever there are slides, in clearing the rivers when there is siltation, etc., etc. They sustain that, they continue that, and then in agreement, their agreement in dividing the tasks among themselves in order to address climate change needs. I knew that there were tree plantings in those times, and yeah, basically. So, but of course, the removal of the Sweden farms was a great one, because the Sweden farms are huge, and they went up to the top of the mountains. So that was, in fact, that was beneficial to the watershed directly.
Mm.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Vicky. I'm just looking at our list of other questions, and yeah, to everyone, feel free to post more questions. We still have a few more minutes. Yeah, we spoke about the role of women, and yeah, Ms. Vicky, the nature of community hydro is that it's very site specific and community specific. So what are some best practices you've learned to make sure that, you know, all of these interventions are, how do you work in many communities, but also focus on their specific needs? Not just needs, but the whole design of a watershed restoration or agroecology program depends on what's on the ground. So what are some steps?
We went through a lot of community consultations, community planning, and the creation of the organization was early enough. Even before the project nearly get to its completion point, in the middle, there is already an organization, a committee set up to. So here there's constant discussion of how things will be, attained, and continuing needs. I would remember that in those times, the poor ones really needed, when they discussed the tariff, there were problems about that, because there were households which could not produce a tariff, like even the widows. But the community had managed to respond to that. They had mechanisms of support and subsidy to those which did not have enough to pay. What else? Those were quite the specifics that we met. Yeah. Especially on the sustenance, the physical sustenance, and of course the technical maintenance. And of course we respond with training and local trainings.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like letting the community make their decisions, giving them a chance to solve issues for themselves is one practice to customize the
Maybe
process.
I just wish to, I missed beginning my topic with the description of our model. These are community-based models. Yeah, where there is organization, there is tasking, the local policy is done by the community and implemented by the community. And it's carried out up to now. So that is what community-based microhydro is understood even until present. Even if there is LGU or the local government unit coming in, they have a respect for the local community organization. And there is those, for instance, meeting the needs of typhoons, no destruction, immediate mobilization of people, immediate discussion on what is to be done is that is important. The context of what I'm talking about is the community-based microhydro model. Sorry, I missed that one.
No,
So,
it's good. Yeah, I just want to highlight that in the mainstream energy access space, like the various organizations advocating for energy access, I think this aspect of governance could receive more attention. So even in this new focus I was mentioning, powering agriculture. So for example, the Rockefeller Foundation has a powering agriculture program, and various other people are producing publications, etc. And it's really great, as I mentioned earlier, these two worlds of food security and energy access were separate, but now they're slowly coming together. But it would help if this aspect of governance was included, because right now they're only looking at the financial viability, which is very important to energy access, and yeah, like making sure there's a market. All of that is very critical. But to make that happen, there has to be community-based governance. And I think that's like, when we speak about agroecology, it's not just about producing grain, and all of that is very critical, but it's about how that process happens, so that when different things are faced by the community, whether climate events or economic things happening, as is now happening, they can actually react without being reliant on outside actors. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Vicky.
Also, well, I wanted to go back to that competing needs, raised by Chisakula. We did water. We did a lot of water projects, but these were mostly in islands, on islands that really did not have water supply, water source for a hydro. So we had to develop the small wind system and supported by solar. We have a very good project in Lubang Island, which is still there, and had served 700 households. It's a big one. 2 systems, wind, solar. But what we had at the time were all the processes that we did with microhydro, the community-based approach. And I would say that there's no difference. And the people, when they are organized to meet the requirements, their own needs, and they could do that. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ms. Vicky. Yeah, if you have any closing thoughts, on this topic, and it doesn't look like we have any more questions. Actually, I have a closing thought, Ms. Vicky. Or a question, how do we convince decision makers to support both energy access and sustainable agriculture?
We wasn't able to do this even during my time. Lack of time, what the point that we reached was in 2016 or 2017 when we called a national meeting presenting the impact. Already the impact, we told the policymakers, LGUs, private sector, that the microhydro concept and strategy is more than 20 years now. And this is what we have done. So we've shown the PEUs, etc., of several, and it resulted to something. But
the productive end use, yeah.
I was no longer there. It resulted to something, and had it been, you can now address, let's say, both the agricultural agency and the LGU, because LGUs will support, definitely. Choose the proper LGUs, they will support. So even starting from the very local picture, you can put together the gains there. But the National Agricultural Agency can package projects instead of just just plain pumps, but microhydros together with demonstrating our successes. We've started to do this, but then also the pandemic, we cannot move easily around.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, so I think you're saying is that we need to show the evidence that this approach works. And I know, as with some of the people joining, it's difficult to document, especially when local teams are busy doing the work, documenting.
Yes, ma'am, that's very important.
Yeah,
cases kind of written down and published. So on the benefits from sustainable agriculture, by way of ending, agroecology promotes in the main and immediately the productive purpose and impact of microhydro to communities. Immediately, it makes the link. It's the purpose, and it realizes that, and agroecology realizes that. Agroecology promotes the resilient and ecological management of land and water resources. And this connects so much to the community role on economic production and even climate change. So that this last point should be really investigated and it should be studied to make it strong. But it is very strong, in fact, if we can only show or demonstrate this. So by way of closing, Dip, if you would allow me, our model, our community-based energy model, is about complete. We have good watershed perspective, concept and perspective, and that links to the river system that drives the seagrass, and then links with agroecology. I'm sorry that I could not. I had to start with the concrete, because that's the only way I can show that GACAB experience is a successful one, Mom.
Oh no, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so some more members, some more partners can take this up. Okay. I know we have had partners many years ago in Africa, Pan-Asia, and this I know sila, who's this? Senator, the good senator, they have sustainable agriculture there. And I wish he could talk about link with microhydro.
Do you mean from Malaysia? Okay, yeah, he actually joined our kickoff last week. Bonnie, you mean Bonnie?
Bonnie, oh, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Of what they've been
yeah,
doing.
we focused more on the watersheds last week, but yeah, less on. So yeah, just to end with Ms. Vicky, the things that you have seen are rice milling. What are some other end uses related to agriculture? Agri-processing.
Well, basic or very, low level of industrialization is possible. So you can make machines. We were able to do the sugarcane press.
Mm-hmm.
I attended one PEU conference of ours, bringing the story of that. That's the first innovation. Pero,
so you made the sugar press machine.
Yes.
And
so you can do all other things that are required by agriculture and escape from that low level of poverty and lack of equipment. Mom, that's very, very good. Very, microhydro has that capacity. And
okay.
Well, we are able to do a lot of things on the ground as requested by the people, even grinders, even.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Vicky. We really appreciate your insight on this topic, and we hope to see you in the field again soon.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
Done my review, in fact, my self-review for a very long time. So this is the first time, let's say in 3 years, that I sat down again on this, on the topic. But
to look in hindsight,
very good to look back to microhydro. Okay. And I'm so happy that I've been part of building that up in our country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. I think, is there someone with their hand raised? You can, okay, maybe the hand raise is gone. Okay, yeah, all right. Well, actually, during the module, as I'll show you now, there will be a way that you can continue to ask questions, and we can also send them to Ms. Vicky along with others. Okay, all right, here's a reaction. Okay, thank you, Mabo. Okay, yeah, so Ms. Vicky, we will move on to the next portion of this live session, and we wish you a good evening. Yeah. But if you go to that website, it's pretty easy to follow. You should have received a login. If you have any problems, just write to us at secretariat@hpnet.org, and we will reply ASAP. And the other thing is we have this tool for all right, see if I can pull up the tool for you to ask questions in this course. And it's actually, we have combined the last course with this one, but so that since many of you are taking both courses, you can use the same tracker. And let's see if I can properly share my screen this time. Yeah, you should be able to see this. Yeah, so there are these tables for if you have questions on course logistics. We just wanted to make sure everyone can see your question and we answer it, so helps everyone. Any questions on module A, there's module G, and you'll see here this H and I are only for that second course. You're not expected to complete that if you're in this agroecology course. And yeah, so you can write your questions here, and we will respond to it here, or if it's more thematically related, we will save it for our Q&A session, which will be on Thursday. I think we have a slot for that. Yeah, don't have. It will be on Thursday, and we will send you the Skype link for that soon. Yeah, and besides for this, I believe that we have a lot of experience in this group on this topic, and so we didn't get a chance this time, but next week we will also include a participant sharing space so that you can bring up more of your experiences that you have in this topic. And yeah, besides for that, I would like to close this session. Thanks so much for being patient with my Zoom skills, and we look forward to engaging with you as the week goes on and you go through the modules. Thank you.